Hello, my sweeties, and welcome to another episode of Oh My Anime Podcast. This is your host, Mimi Hime, and today we'll be talking about my pet peeves in anime. Okay, so for those of us OG anime watchers, and I mean, I'll call you an OG if you've been watching anime for at least the last 5 years or more, we all know what to expect from most shows. And at this point, a lot of us are pretty, I would almost say, persnickety about shows, because even though we love watching anime, it takes a lot for a show to surprise us, to get us on the edge of our seat, because we've seen it all. Anime has done it all. It's just really hard to find a show that really catches us off guard. So when we get a show that does something out of the ordinary, those are the shows that you'll really see us talking about in forums, on our Facebook pages, etc. Those are the 8, 9s, and 10s of the seasons. The shows that really get us excited about new possibilities. The things that get on our way usually are just tropes. And of course, I'm aware of the if it ain't broke, don't fix it method, right? If there's a ton of people out there who enjoy the same formula, it gives you the same solution every time, why fix it? Why change a trope? Why try to diverge from mainstream if mainstream is what gets the bills paid? Well, let me tell you why you need to diverge from mainstream at least every now and again. It's because it gets boring. It gets boring. And if it doesn't get boring, I can tell you that 100% it'll eventually get hella annoying. And so that brings me to what we're talking about today. My personal pet peeves in anime. Now, my friends, my family, everyone, they will just say that I'm just, too critical of anime. I get way too deep. I care too much. I invest too much of my time and emotions into these shows. And guess what? They're probably correct. I probably should find another hobby to, balance out my love of anime. But guess what? Until that time comes, anime has my full, undivided attention unless I'm focusing on work or school. So, my first pet peeve comes from the shonen genre. And I know a lot of you who have been listening to my podcast know that I have tons of pet peeves about shonen. And let me just get this out of the way right now. Shonen and shoujo, they both kind of suffer from the same formula of, the show is always about growth. It's always about, coming of age, whether it be a boy coming of age or a girl coming of age, what have you, that trope, whatever. I'm fine with that. That is okay. I have no issue with that. What I do have an issue with is I am so tired. I'm so tired of parents having to die. It's just a pet peeve at this point. I just don't think that we need to base power, strength, and growth off of loss. Okay? There's more things in this world that people can grow from, develop, and become a healthy individual without constantly having to be pushed by pain and trauma. And it happens in both shonen and shoujo, but I just think shonen in particular really emphasizes this physical loss element way too much. I don't like it. I don't like having to watch every time I watch a shonen show. I know that something has happened to this person's parents, and it does not happen that often in shoujo. In shoujo shows, more often than not, maybe one of the parents is traveling, but they're not dead. And usually I'll even go an extra step. Most shoujo, not all of them. I'm not saying shoujo doesn't have shows where, the female characters' parents are, deceased, dead, or whatever, what have you. But a majority of them, at least the ones I particularly care about, both of the parents are, alive and well, super supportive, or just naive and have no idea what their girl is going through, like being a magical girl. But shonen, yo, they be putting these boys through the ringer. I tell you. I mean, cause the thing too is, like, I feel like the parents, I mean, I suppose that it's not that they always die like a super painful death, but I just feel like the death is always like super traumatic, or it's just, I don't know, it's just always over the top, and I'm really sick of it. There are other ways to be promoting growth, stability, and fostering the mental health of young developing boys, outside of telling them that they have to fight everyone, that they have to be physically the strongest, like, and literally putting themselves through hell, breaking all the bones in their body. I mean, it's just, I know that the superhero, the hero, the, strong, brave, and true stereotype among boys has, withstood the test of time. I get it. I understand. I'm not saying throw the whole trope away, but I'm just saying this idea that, like, these people wouldn't have been able to become as strong. They wouldn't have had any other better motivation without losing their parents. Or I'll even take it one step forward. Maybe not losing their parents, but like losing some critical person in their life in some traumatic way. So whether it be like their best friend or parents, or just maybe even like a love interest, like this idea that you couldn't be the best version of yourself without immense loss, is just something that I don't think we need to push that narrative as strongly as we do towards a young male audience anymore. I would just really love to see more shows. I'm not saying these shows don't exist, but I would just love to see more mainstream shows that everyone loves, where a character is training to be a superhero, or he is trying to be the greatest something, or just, once again, that coming of age story, get his father's approval, what have you. I just wish there was just a lot less trauma involved in that growth and in that development. And I understand that trauma is something that catches people's eyes. People love to see a sob story. People love tragedies. They make for good numbers. I understand that, but I just personally think the time and era of having to rely on trauma is over. It can go. I'm sick of it. I'm tired of it. Being the last person in his family. And it's not just in anime. Like, there's just across the board, most trope stories that are geared to a young male audience have something to do with loss. And I really don't like it. It really bothers me. And I think it's really setting our young men up for failure. I think it's really setting them up to be, not quite where they should be as far as the like emotional stability and mental stability era goes. You might think I'm taking it too far, but guess what? This is my podcast and this is what I'm talking about today. So anyway, moving on from that pet peeve, my second pet peeve comes from, honestly, any genre. This is not exclusive to any one genre. It does occur more often in romance. I don't know why I said romance. Romance anime. And that is coincidences. I cannot stand just back to back coincidences. And I mean, this definitely happens a lot in romance, like rom-coms. And I mean, it happens in all the other genres too, but especially rom-coms in anime. Let me give you an example. For instance, these two characters that have never met each other meet each other at the grocery store. They don't get along. They're complete opposites. They hate each other, whatever, right? And then they walk home, and then their girl is like, why are you following me? And he's like, I'm not following you, you're following me. And they end up showing up at the same apartment complex. And they're not just in the same apartment complex, they are next door to each other. So this apartment complex has like 2 floors. It doesn't matter if it has 2 floors or 18 floors. They magically live not only in the same building, but on the same floor, and they're next door neighbors. Okay, great. Not only is that already stupid, but then it'll be like, okay, they wake up the next morning, get ready for school, they leave at the same time. That never happened before, but of course it's happening now that they're leaving at the exact same time. And then, oh, they're in the same class, or, oh, they're in the class next door to each other. Oh, like, oh my God, I cannot stand back-to-back-to-back coincidences. Every now and then, I'm more than happy for the suspense of disbelief or whatever. I'm fine with that. I can handle it up to some point, but I just feel like we've had so many years of narratives that rely on this that I'm just like, come on. There has to be another way to have the same effect without it literally happening in the same order every single time. Other examples will be like, for instance, recently in Quintessential Quintuplets, Futaro and Miku both enter into a, oh, this might be a spoiler. I don't think it's a spoiler. But if you haven't watched the 2nd season of Quintessential Quintuplets, this might be a minor spoiler. But anyway, Futaro and Miku are grocery shopping together, and they both decide to enter into this, grocery sweepstakes. Like, when you go to the grocery store and it'll be like, you can win this cruise. Just sign your name on this piece of paper with your name and phone number, and we'll call you if you win. And so Futaro and Miku put their names into this sweepstakes at their grocery store. And of course, both of them win. And so they happen to show up at the same vacation spot at the same time with their families. And I'm like, are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. And then, like, of course, the like resort place that they're staying at belongs to Miku and her siblings' grandfather. So of course that's the location that the sweepstakes is taking them to. Yeah, I can't stand it. Like, there's a certain number of coincidences that fall into the realm of realism. Then there are some that I'm like, okay, I can believe this. And then there's just some that I'm like, okay, I'm sick of it. This is just not even interesting to watch anymore because it just is, it's so frustrating. I hate it. Let's see. The next pet peeve. Yep, this is literally an episode of me just talking about the things that annoy me in anime. The next one that I can think of would be, gosh, I don't know. I feel those were like definitely my main two. Oh, I know. Another one that I really don't like is, it's probably because I'm thinking of Quintessential Quintuplets. Don't get me wrong. I love Quintessential Quintuplets. It's one of my favorite, harem romance shows in a while, but harem. I am a huge fan of ecchi, for those of you who don't know. I love romance. I love rom-coms. So it's not really necessarily a jab at those genres in particular, but I just have my pet peeve about these kinds of shows is, for instance, Quintessential Quintuplets. I understand the allure of the fact that all 5 of the quintuplets, are in love with Futaro. Like, that's not a spoiler. Like, that's literally the premise of the show. But all 5 sisters fall in love with this one guy. And yes, the show, the manga, they give you full understanding and full, explanation, justification, and validation for why each of the girls individually, how and why they fall in love with Futaro. But I'm just like, it's just really frustrating for me because I'm like, what are the odds that all of these 5 very different girls with very different personalities, and like that's part of the show too, like all of the girls are trying to distinguish themselves as, yes, I am a quintuplet, but I'm also an individual, a unique individual with like a unique personality, with my own hobbies and characteristics and stuff like that. But then they all fall for this like same guy, and it's just, even though I have loved the entire plot and premise of the show, I love all 5 of these girls equally. It's just at the same time, some of their personalities, I'm like, but you wouldn't fall for this guy. Like, you really legit wouldn't. And yes, they make it work with the way that the show presents itself, I guess I should say. Like, it works. Like, the premise works. I enjoy the show. It's definitely one of my top rated shows for this currently airing season. But at the same time, when I take a step back and look at it, I'm just like, literally, what are the odds that all 5 sisters would fall for this one guy? And especially since in the anime, I know the manga has way more development for the girls than the anime does. But like, but in the anime, for instance, like, some of the girls have like significantly less interactions with Futaro than the others. So while I can justify it and see it for some of the others, like, some of them I'm just like, I don't even understand why you, like, are you just happy? I don't know. I just, harems are really hard for me because you take all of these girls with very, very, very different personalities. And then they kind of fall for this guy who's just like completely not the type. And I understand that some people fall for, or unexpectedly fall for, people who aren't their type. But some of them, it's just like, you would never fall for someone like this because he acts like this. And so it's just, it's very strange and somewhat jarring sometimes when you have that many females with different personalities. And then obviously, you know, it's supposed to be catering to the fandom because everyone has their own personal preference in the fandom. So it's really like, I understand that the harem shows are meant to give you a bunch of different romantic options, and then you are supposed to put yourself or interject yourself as that character that all of these different women are, or men, because there are reverse harems, like, you know, My Life as a Villainess, All Routes Lead to Doom kind of thing, where it's a female being pursued by both men and women. But I don't know. It's weird. It's not, I guess that wouldn't necessarily be a full pet peeve, but it's definitely one of those things where it's like, sometimes they're like pitting people against each other for someone that I just know that they would never normally fight for, right? And suspense of disbelief, I guess. Let's see. Another pet peeve of mine in anime would definitely have to be the beach episode filler. I don't understand. I understand. I understand as a member of the ecchi fan community. I understand why there are beach episodes, because people want to see their characters barely dressed. I got it. I get it. We're good, I guess. But let's just say I don't have an issue with the beach episode filler itself. I have an issue with its placement. Okay? Placement. Because what I get very irritated by is when it's in the middle of a season. I do not mind beach filler episodes when it's at the end of an arc and it's somewhat canon, right? Because most of the time the fillers aren't canon. But that's the thing. I don't mind beach fillers when they're somewhat canon / at the end of something going on. But what I cannot stand is we're in the middle of something super plot related, right? Like, we're in the middle of a fight, we're in the middle of something huge is happening, and then all of a sudden there's a beach filler episode, and like, we're not talking about what was just the main premise, right? You see what I'm saying? I can't stand that, because it completely removes the tension and immersion for me when I go from, oh my god, is he about to get his head sliced in half, to, okay, we're going to the beach. What bikini are you going to wear? Oh my god, are you going to wear it in front of him? There's so much skin. You know, and then the next episode we're back to, oh, he did get his head sliced. Things like that. I'm just like, no, put it at the end of the season, at the end of the fight, everyone's tired, and then they're like, oh, look, comedic relief. You just got through this really heavy fight scene. Here's some comedy. Like, I'm fine with that, but the placement of fillers is definitely sometimes a a make it or break it element for me, because if you put too many fillers in the middle of significant plot points, I will get so angry. It's just stupid. I just think it's stupid. I don't know why they do that. I do know why they do that. They do it because sometimes, especially if they're following source material, they're waiting to they're trying to give the source material more time to release so that they can like animate it and stuff. I get that, but I don't know. Just don't start that arc until the arc is done. I don't know. I would just rather you wait. Don't give me a bunch of filler in the middle of a significant plot point. Just, so annoying. Let's see. Gosh, I should have wrote these down before I started this episode. I gotta have at least a few more pet peeves in my head. Okay, I have another one. Another one that I definitely have is the unexplained ridiculous hairstyles of main characters, right? Everybody else in the show, like, it was already bad enough that you know who the main character is based off their hair color and where they're sitting in the classroom, right? We all know if you're sitting by the window and your hair is pink, you're the main character. If you're sitting by the window and your hair is blue, everybody else's hair is, you know, pitch standard black, then you know that's the main character. We all know. But what I have always found absolutely absurd and is absolutely a pet peeve of mine is when you have a character whose hair is unexplainably defying gravity for no reason. No one else's hair does that either. And no one else's hair does that either. And no one talks about it. No one talks about how your hair looks absolutely ridiculous. And the thing too is, it would be one thing if their parents' hair looked ridiculous, but it rarely does. It's almost the parents' hair never looks like that either. So you can't even be like, oh, it's genetic. Like, no, like somehow this character's hair stays like this all the time, and it's not even like they'll give us the like benefit of seeing the character like style their hair with mousse or hair gel or hairspray one day. They don't explain it, and it's just sort of like, this is their character design, their hair looks like this, and we're just gonna accept it. And sure, every now and again you'll get the little bit of meta from one of the other characters who will be like, I wonder why their hair is like that. But no one ever actually gives you an answer to that. It's just supposed to be this comedic like fourth wall break of no one else knows either. But I demand an explanation. I really do. One show that did this, but it was okay because everyone else's hair was ridiculous too, was Yu-Gi-Oh! Yugi Moto had the most ridiculous looking hair, and Yami came out with even more ridiculous looking hair. Nobody said a word, but then again, there was plenty of other characters in the show, like My Valentine. I don't know how her bangs were doing what they were doing, but that didn't make any gosh darn sense. Pegasus had some crazy bangs, pointy bangs going on too. I wasn't certain how that was happening. Now, of course, Yuki's hair was definitely defying gravity in ways that I never quite understood, but at least there were other characters in the show that had hair that was similarly weird and strange. But then you have shows like, for instance, this season, and obviously this is the second season, so it was on previous seasons, Dr. Stone, like Senku's hair. Why does Senku's hair stand straight up like that? Nobody knows. No one talks about it. Even when he gets wet, like his hair doesn't necessarily like fall down. At least maybe he's never gotten wet. I don't know. I feel like I've seen him in a water scene. I have to like think back now, but I don't know how Senku's hair stays the way it does, and no one else's hair in the show is just that preposterous. Now, I do be wondering how his nemesis on the other side, whose name literally just slipped my mind, and I'm not going to sit here and try to look it up either. But whatever. Senku's nemesis in Dr. Stone, I am about to sit here and look it up. No, I'm not, because gosh, why is this so hard to find all the time? Okay, whatever. I'm not going to waste time on this. Anyway, Senku's nemesis in Dr. Stone, I don't understand his hair, not because his hair is realistic, but I'm like, how does your hair stay looking freshly conditioned and shampooed at all times? Like, what? How does it look like that? Everyone else's hair is kind of like, it's in twigs, it's wrapped in cloth. Like, it makes sense. It looks like it's a little dry, probably some split ends. But that other guy's hair always be like fresh, flowing brunette locks. I mean, he be looking good, and I don't know how. I don't know how his hair stays looking luxurious like that. It's truly, truly unexplainable. But yeah, and then there are plenty of other characters, and let me also state, I'm talking about characters who are human, not characters, like in Rosario Vampire, where they're obviously monsters, and some of the ridiculous nature of their hair could be attributed to their magical affinity or whatever, right? Like, I'm talking about everyday normal humans that just have hair that makes no sense. So, like, I don't know, like, for instance, like, I mean, I don't actually care about this. This is not actually a pet peeve. But what I'm talking about is, like, regular humans. And then you've got the female characters with cowlicks. Like, the huge antennas in their head. And there's only, like, the one or the two. And they can never, keep it down with hair gel or hair grease. And it's kind of an ongoing joke. And then, depending on the show, the animators will then use that antenna to, like, show emotion of the girl, because it's usually a girl. And so when she's sad, the, like, antenna will droop, and when she's happy, it'll, like, stand up on its end, sort of like a tail of a cat kind of thing. I don't have an issue with those. I'm very explicitly talking about, like, the just ridiculous hairstyles like Senku that make no sense. They're not even realistic. Heck, it doesn't make scientific sense as to why his hair stays up the way it does. I have a huge issue with that. Let's see. Let me see if I can think of one more pet peeve to end the show off with. Another big pet peeve that I am always on top of is confirming kills in anime, right? I think all of us know by now, you always need to confirm your kill. And it drives me up the wall that these villains be doing the most with these hero characters. And they go through all this trouble and then they never confirm their kill, right? So they be, they'll shoot them, set them on fire, what have you, all these things. And then they'll just, like, look at them on the ground and then slowly walk away, let their, for whatever reason the character comes back. It could have been avoided if the villain had confirmed their kill. And I mean, the same exact thing could actually be said about hero characters who fight villains that are, like, reoccurring villains. Because it's really a situation of, like, why don't you confirm that the person is actually dead? Whether that's also doing things like, even if you don't necessarily confirm your kill, I need you to, like, brutally maim them in a way that, even if they aren't dead, they're going to be, like, permanently injured in some way, because the current science or magic of this world wouldn't be able to heal it quickly. It just makes no sense to me. Like, how I put it, like, a great example of this would be freaking Frieza in Dragon Ball. Now, if Frieza had just confirmed kills just a smidge more, Frieza wouldn't have issues with Saiyans. It wouldn't be Vegeta, it wouldn't even be Goku. Like, there would be nothing, because he would have actually confirmed his kills, but he never does. And then, I mean, then there's just the whole ridiculousness that Goku doesn't believe in quote killing people. So that's why Frieza's still alive. That's a whole other story. But anyway, there are dozens of other shows too, where characters just do sort of their final attack and are like, this is it, we're over, you're done, this is my final move. Just because it's your final move doesn't mean it's their final move. Y'all be out here acting super arrogant and cocky, and it gets on my nerve. I can't stand it, because it's like, you know better. You know better. You know that they're about to stand up, and then what are you going to do? Because now you've done shouted that this is your final move. They know you have nothing else left in the tank until plot armor comes through and you get a suddenly new power. That's fine and all, but This embarrassment could have been avoided if you weren't out here shouting out what your final move is. And if you confirmed your kill, you wouldn't have to keep having the same fight with the same person over and over again, knowing that every time they come back to fight you again, they're 10 times stronger than they were when you fought them the last time. So all I'm saying is, to all the heroes and villains out there, whenever you do kill someone, and please remember that this is in the context of anime and not crazy serial killers who may be listening to my podcast. Hopefully there are no serial killers listening to my podcast, but remember to confirm your kill. Because if you don't, chances are they're not dead. And as anime fans, we should always look for a body when people are fighting. If someone gets like yeeted into a mountain and the mountain crumbles on top of them and then we all just forget that that character was there, I can assure you that character is not dead. Please confirm your kills. Please make sure that you see the body and you make sure that someone buries the body, because as long as the body is not buried, I can 100% assure you that that character will in fact return in some shape, form, or capacity. Also, if they disappear into magical pixie or fairy dust or something of likeness or similarity, there's still a chance that they can come back too, because I have seen plenty of shows where people disappear into particles and then suddenly the particles decide at some random point during plot to reform together. So all I can say is make sure you confirm your kills. With that, I think that's it for today's episode on Pet Peeves. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, I love you so much, and until next time, goodbye.